Hello, everybody, and I guess welcome to Analytics Are for the Nerds, but it's not really that. It's not a podcast today. Um, I wanted to take a minute here and, as I'm retweeting this, take a minute here and discuss what happened with Scotfish Bowl Buffalo, as a lot of people have contacted me and asked what's going on, what happened, and I know some people have presented it to be differently than what is true. So let me, I guess, start with saying that I really have loved running this event for like the last 5 years. It has grown big time. We started, I think, with 2 drafts 5 years ago at Big Ditch, and then the last few years we were at Fatty Beer, and this year we were really, really excited to do it at Brightsmith Brewing. We didn't leave Fatty Beer because of anything wrong with Fatty or anything with food or anything like that. We left because we were running out of space. We just barely had enough space for four divisions, and Brightsmith did present us a chance and opportunity to grow, which we have over the last 5 years. And I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit with that. I feel like, we've had really successful, good events. I think Buffalo itself is one of the hotbeds of fantasy football, which a lot of people might not know across the country, but we know we have a couple multi-time FFPC guys here that have won $1 million. We have, Mike Shope, who's very big into the fantasy scene, and just a really good community that's helped run these events, has helped me. Mike was one of the big, co-organizer of the first one, very supportive of me and the event here through the few years. What happened this year? I first off want to say that I don't want to sound like this is difficult for me, because I love the cause. I think the cause is for the right thing, and I don't want to feel some form of way to alienate people against an organization that I know, at least from the top with Scott Fish, is ran for the right reasons. There was a lot of missteps here through this thing. It starts and ends with John Bosch, and a lot of you, before even knowing that, people in Buffalo kind of knew and got that sense, but people outside of Buffalo have, I have many of Twitter DMs from people that before I could even tell them what was going on said this must have to do with John Bosch, which they were right. And the reason why I'm doing this and like coming out and say is not so much even to like protect any form of integrity on my end, because I know that, I did no ill will here or anything like that. So I'm not like trying to clear my name of anything, but shitty people will stay shitty if they are not held accountable, and if people don't speak up. And I had 10 people in my DMs that knew that John Bosch is a shitty person, and they obviously, have not said that publicly or, whatever. And I could just be the 11th person. I could be a person that will be messaging somebody next year. Oh, your event didn't go right. Was it because John Bosch? And we're all doing this in Twitter DMs. I'm not doing that. I'm going to hold him accountable, and I'm going to hold Scott accountable, to be perfectly honest, because at the end of the day, I'm self-employed. If my manager goes and does something stupid, who's the one responsible? It's me. Scott and I had a very productive conversation, unfortunately too late after the decision was made to move the event, and I'll get into that in a second. And I think Scott was doing a little bit of damage control, to be perfectly honest. And while it seemed authentic, he had said that he would try to pass a lot of blame on John, but also here we are, and John was, still running the event, still not having any form of accountability, and I would imagine is just going to go ahead and run his organization, and already has, really hurt the one here in Buffalo. So what had happened was really something crazy. So Brightsmith a couple days just notified me a couple days before, and it was a little bit late in their notice of just like they were trying to understand how we were going to do food. And I guess my understanding would have just been kind of I've been there before, they just kind of order at the bar when they can. They did reach out to me a couple days before and mentioned, hey, we have a regular brunch crowd. You guys have this private room that we're donating you. Please promote coming before or staying later and eating during those hours, because if we have 100 people putting in single orders while we're doing a regular brunch crowd, we're just not built for that. And that's going to be pretty tough. And I understood. I did say that I wish I would have known this a little bit more early so I could have communicated this a little bit better, but maybe that on my end, not doing that. But at the end of the day, we haven't had food in our last 3 events at Fatty Beer at all, 0. So, the fact that that was even an option before or after, we're on the plus side. I shared this information with all of our drafters, to 0 complaints, by the way, not 1 complaint, not 1. And immediately John responded with an email saying we cannot deal with that. And they have to serve food while we're there. John's was going to be here in Buffalo. I don't know if he's just a hungry fella or what, but very, very adamant about needing the food during the draft. And I said, well, what are we going to do at this point? Like, if this is something that we want to maybe change in the future, or that really bothers, but we're 2 days, away from the event, and we had just finalized 2 more drafts. We had 72 drafters. Those 72 drafters were bringing guests. We were factoring in about 100 people. John responded with, what we were going to do is exactly what we did with San Diego when they pulled the shit. We found a different venue and told them to fuck off. Hold on one second. The right-hand man of a charitable organization wrote, what we are going to do is exactly what we did with San Diego when they pulled the shit. We found a different venue and told them to fuck off. If we could find a place that can open a spot for 75 people to come and eat, drink on a Sunday, then we'll change the venue. It's short notice, but not having food is kind of a big deal, so we have to try. Like I said, he must be a hungry fella. I wrote and said how I thought this was really kind of crazy and being this forward. And then he said, feel free to give him my number. I'm happy to handle the call if they're interested in discussing it. But Dave & Buster's, now this is a little bit shady here. And I don't know if this is a Scott thing, if this is a John thing, if this is a Scott Fishbowl thing. If either of them would like to come on and talk to me on the podcast and try to straighten this out, either of them could come on. But Dave & Buster's has actually been courting us to make Dave & Buster's the home of Scott Fishbowl Live. Well, there it is. Right? Is that not what this is all about? They reached out to Scott, Dave & Buster's Buffalo, and they did take us on take them, not me, I am not being involved, take them on a short notice. What that did was it canceled on a local business, Buffalo-owned business, within 72 hours notice, when they thought they were going to have 100 people on a Sunday, staffed for 100 people on a Sunday. They took food out of people's mouths. Literally, people that had that shift booked were no longer being booked because they canceled 72 hours before the event. So this charitable, high and tidy organization didn't care about the servers, the cooks, whoever it was that they just totally fucked. John wants to say fucked, I'll say fucked. Didn't give a shit about that. And then they moved it to a chain in Dave & Buster's, which by the way, Buffalo, I don't know, I know a lot of you might be listening, but I know some of you aren't from here around the country listening to this shit. We don't support chains here. It was very much important to me and to the other drafters that we were supporting a local business and doing this. But Scott Fishbowl wants to bring Dave & Buster's. They're the official home of Scott Fishbowl. So, or wants that, I guess. And it's funny that the argument was about food not being served. And they went to go, eat frozen chicken fingers at Dave & Buster's around children. It was baffling to me. I had told John immediately that I would be backing out as organizer, and I did feel like a lot of people would follow me. A lot of people did follow me, not just in support of me, but also in the support of how dumb the decision is, in support of Brightsmith Brewing, who I will keep on saying their name because I hope anybody that's listening to this in Buffalo continues to support them here this week and going forward, because I feel horrible. I'm stuck in the middle of it because I was the main contact until I wasn't. I was the main contact until I wasn't important enough to go over my head. Supposedly to Scott Fish, he said he didn't have any part in this decision either. I find that hard to believe, but that's what he told me, that he was too busy and he just let John do his thing. So without telling me, without telling Scott, allegedly, he just decided to move this thing without asking feedback from the 72 drafters. So they moved that. Today was a total shit show from what I heard. I've had people text me that it was nowhere like the last few years. Some people that were new that said this was horrible. I got screenshots of the chats, the group chats where the leagues got started 30, 40 minutes late. None of the leagues were finalized. Total shit show. I had Bills tickets ready to be donated, Sabres tickets, Bandits tickets, all donated through friends and families that were not part of that raffle because of this decision. Scott Fish and John Bosch, specifically John Bosch, cost their own organization a shitload of money. They cost any kind of, no one, I will tell you right now, I promise you, no one that was there today is going to step in and try to take over this event going forward with how much of a shit show that was. I didn't want to do it this year or next year. And if John was involved next year, I wouldn't have done it. John, to everyone's point in my DMs, John rubs me the wrong way to begin with. This was just the final straw. So I wouldn't have done it again. But this was really more so where it frustrates me is how they did Brightsmith. How John was totally matter of fact, this is what we need, without talking to his boss, allegedly, without talking to me. I put in hours and hours and hours of work through this thing for 5 years. And the fact that this is how I was treated is bullshit. Can't say it any other way. Absolute bullshit. I think John Bosch is an asshole. He belongs nowhere near this organization. And until Scott kind of takes some responsibility here publicly instead of a phone call to me kind of half-assing it, I think he's a little bit of an asshole too, to be perfectly honest. I think this organization has gotten too big for itself. I think if this does do like some partnership with Dave & Buster's, good luck to you. But this was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, an event that we just ran locally. We took the thing, we sent them a check. No overseeing, no John Bosch messaging me every day to make sure things were okay. I just ran shit. Did it well. They got their check. No questions asked. Now they're this big thing and they're charging $50 entries and blah, 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 blah. I think, good luck with that is all I'll say. But you can justify all that because people are okay with donating for the right cause. You can justify all those changes. You can even justify having a guy like John Bosch, who's a control freak, and being in charge. which you cannot justify as how they treated me, how they treated Brightsmith specifically, and how they totally disrupted 72 drafters within 2 days' notice. So that's what happened. I am free to talk about your podcast, this podcast. Anybody want to talk about it, I will talk about it. I'm open about it. I have nothing to be ashamed of, except for trusting this organization with my time and efforts. But nothing else to be ashamed of. So I will talk about it. If anybody, my DMs are always open. Would love to expose John more for his bullshit. And I think one thing is, and I'll say this, I said this to them. And so if it got out publicly that I said it, or people think they're cool to send screenshots or whatever, I'll say it publicly here. I said, do not take my kindness as a sign of weakness. I am not the one to fuck with. And I promise you, I will continue to spiel this shit about John Bosch until this is handled properly. So I'm here to talk about it whenever. I hope the event went as bad as it sounded, to be perfectly honest, because maybe that will wake Scott up and maybe he'll do something better with who's running the organization. I think that there is, when you are talking about charity, that position should come with compassion and fun. This was fun for me for 3-4 years until he got involved. Nowhere near fun, and zero compassion. And, you know, that's not anybody that I want. We all have very difficult choices to where to spend our charitable income. I highly suggest that it's not Scott Fishbowl for you going forward, but I know I won't. For me, I'm Louis G. Thanks for listening to me spew.